My hands shook as I counted the bundles of cash on my office desk. My heart raced, pounding like drums in my chest. I had worked all my life for this company, sacrificed my health, my comfort, my own family's needs just to make sure my workers had salaries, medical care, and even food packages during hard times. Yet here I was, staring at the empty space in the safe where more than $50,000 was supposed to be. The safe was empty. Completely empty. I leaned on the desk, gasping for breath. My mind screamed, no, it cannot be true. My workers wouldn't do this to me. Not after everything I've given them. But the truth slapped me in the face like cold water. Someone I trusted had stolen the money. Someone I treated like my own child. That was the moment my world shattered. Before I continue, let me introduce myself properly. My name is Margaret, but most people call me Grandma Maggie. I am 67 years old, and I live in Atlanta, Georgia, USA. Before I go deep into this story, I want you, my dear viewers, to kindly like this video, subscribe to my channel, and click the notification button so you don't miss the upcoming chapters of my life stories. And also, please tell me in the comments which part of the country you're watching from. I love to know where my listeners are tuning in. Now let me take you back to how all this started. I was never a rich woman by birth. I grew up in a small town where life was hard and opportunities were rare. When I was young, I swore to myself that if God ever blessed me with success, I would never let anyone around me suffer the way I did. That promise became my life's mission. When I built my company, a small packaging and supply firm, I treated my workers like family. While other employers cut corners, I gave bonuses, extra pay during holidays, and even personal loans to those who came crying about rent or hospital bills. Many times, I went without buying myself new clothes or repairing my own leaking roof just to make sure my workers were happy. I thought that if I gave them everything, they would stand with me through thick and thin. For a while it felt like I was right. My company grew and people respected me for my kindness. Workers would hug me, call me Mama Maggie, and some even said, "You're more than a boss, you're our second mother." My heart swelled with pride every time I heard that. But little did I know that snakes were hiding in the grass. One day, I noticed small amounts of money missing from the accounts. First, I thought it was a mistake. Then supplies began disappearing, boxes of goods vanishing before delivery. Still, I ignored the signs, convincing myself my workers loved me too much to betray me. They wouldn't do that, I whispered every time doubt tried to creep in. Until the day came when the safe was robbed clean. I had returned from a business meeting in New York, tired but excited, because I had just secured a big contract that would bring growth for everyone in the company. The first thing I did was go to the safe to confirm the funds we had kept aside for the new project. My knees nearly buckled when I opened it and found nothing. I staggered back, holding onto the wall. Tears blurred my vision. My heart whispered names of the people I trusted most, my manager, my secretary, even the workers who called me mother. Could it be one of them? No, no, no. I called an emergency staff meeting that night. Everyone stood in the conference room, their faces blank, pretending as if they knew nothing. I searched their eyes one after the other, but all I saw were masks. Nobody spoke, nobody confessed. The silence was heavy, almost suffocating. And then just as I was about to dismiss the meeting, something happened that made me tremble even more. I saw one of my most trusted workers. James, the man I had once saved from eviction, the man I gave money to when his wife was sick. He looked away quickly, nervously, when I asked who last had access to the safe. My heart sank. Could it be James? That question burned in my chest like fire. But before I could press further, something shocking happened right there in that meeting. Something that left me frozen in place and gasping for breath. The room was filled with silence so heavy you could almost hear it pressing down on our shoulders. Everyone was waiting for me to speak, but I was staring straight at James. His eyes darted to the floor, then to the ceiling, anywhere but me. My heart hammered in my chest. "James," I called, my voice trembling. You were the last person who handled the safe, weren't you?" The entire room turned toward him. For a moment he froze. Then with a shaky laugh he said, "No, Mama Maggie, it wasn't me. I've never even touched that safe. You know I wouldn't do such a thing." But the way he spoke only made me doubt him more. He was sweating, and his hands shook as he shoved them into his pockets. I felt my legs grow weak. I remembered how, just 2 months ago, James had come to me crying about his wife's hospital bills. I had given him thousands of dollars, money I could have used to fix my broken roof. He had hugged me and said, "God bless you, Mama. I'll never forget this." And now here he was acting like a stranger. Before I could say another word, one of the younger workers, a girl named Susan, suddenly shouted, "Tell the truth, James. You were the one who had the keys last week. I saw you near the safe after hours." The whole room erupted in noise. Some workers gasped, others shouted at Susan, while James turned red in the face and barked, "You liar! You're just trying to put this on me, because you don't like me." I raised my hand, my voice rising above the chaos. "Enough." The room went quiet again. I turned to James. "If you have nothing to hide, then let's check the security cameras. The footage will show us everything." For a split second, his face went pale. That single moment told me more than 1,000 words could. My heart sank deeper. But when I ordered my assistant to bring the recordings, we discovered something that nearly broke me. The cameras had been tampered with. The entire week's footage was missing. Erased. I held my chest, feeling as though someone had stabbed me straight through the heart. Who would go this far to betray me? Not just stealing money, but wiping out evidence too? The room grew tense again. I could see guilt flashing in the eyes of some workers, while others looked just as shocked as I was. "Do you see, Mama Maggie?" James said quickly, trying to sound confident. "If the cameras don't show anything, then you can't just accuse me. It could be anyone here." For a moment, I stood frozen, torn between my belief in him and the harsh truth right in front of me. My workers, the very people I sacrificed everything for, had stolen from me. And now they were turning against one another. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, tears rolling down my cheeks. I had always believed kindness would be repaid with loyalty, but now I was learning a painful truth. Kindness can also be repaid with betrayal. Still, I wasn't ready to give up. I told myself, "Maggie, you have to stay strong. You must find out the truth. You must protect what you built with your blood and sweat." The next morning, I arrived at the office earlier than anyone else. I went through documents, records, accounts, everything. Hours passed and then I saw it. Several fake invoices signed off by James. My hands trembled as I held the papers. They were proof that someone had been stealing from the company for months, hiding it behind fake paperwork. But just as I prepared to confront him with the evidence, something terrifying happened. The fire alarm suddenly went off, loud and piercing, filling the entire building with panic. Workers screamed, running out of their offices, clutching their bags and belongings. Smoke began to fill the hallway. I froze in my office, the fake invoices still in my hand. Was this an accident? Or had someone set the fire to destroy the evidence I had just uncovered? The shrill scream of the fire alarm cut through the building like a knife. My heart pounded as thick black smoke curled under my office door. For a moment, I froze, staring at the stack of fake invoices in my trembling hands. These papers were the only proof I had that my workers, my own so-called family, had been stealing from me. If I lost them now, everything would vanish into the smoke. "Lord, help me," I whispered, clutching the papers to my chest. I grabbed my handbag and pushed the door open. The hallway was chaos. Workers were running, coughing, screaming. Some carried files. Others dragged chairs out of the way. The smoke grew heavier, making it hard to breathe. "Grandma Maggie!" I heard someone shout. It was Susan, the same young girl who had accused James the night before. She ran toward me, covering her nose with her sleeve. "Come on, we have to get out." I nodded, but even as she tried to lead me to the exit, I noticed something strange. James wasn't panicking like the others. While everyone else scrambled for safety, he darted toward the records room, the one place where all our company documents were stored. My eyes widened. Why would he run there in the middle of a fire? Ignoring Susan's protests, I pulled away and followed him. My lungs burned from the smoke, but I pressed on. I reached the records room just in time to see James shoving files into a black bag. His face was wild, desperate. "James!" I croaked, my voice hoarse from the smoke. "What are you doing?" He spun around, eyes wide. For a moment, we just stared at each other. Then he hissed, You don't understand, Mama Maggie. I had no choice. No choice. I coughed. You had every choice. I gave you everything, money, food, even helped your wife when she was dying. And this is how you repay me? By stealing? By burning down the company. His face twisted with shame and anger. You think you helped me? You only made me weak, made me depend on you. I was drowning in debt, and the money was right there in front of me. Do you know how tempting that is? Do you know what it's like to see your children hungry while you work day and night? And the boss, you live better than all of us. I gasped. James, I lived poorer than anyone. I went without food to pay you people. I wore torn clothes while you enjoyed your salaries. I gave you my whole life. For a moment, he looked as though he might break down, but then his eyes hardened. It doesn't matter. Nobody will ever know it was me. Not if I burn everything. Before I could react, he grabbed a lighter from his pocket and flicked it, aiming at the stack of files beside him. My heart nearly stopped. No! I screamed, lunging forward. I grabbed his wrist with all the strength left in my old arms. We struggled, coughing and choking as smoke filled the room. The lighter fell to the floor, and in the struggle, flames leapt onto a pile of cardboard. Within seconds, fire roared up the shelves, eating through the records like a hungry beast. I staggered back, clutching the fake invoices tighter, but James wasn't done. His face glistened with sweat and smoke. He shoved me against the wall, snarling, "Give me those papers, or neither of us makes it out alive." The flames raged around us, the ceiling creaking as if ready to collapse. I could hear workers outside screaming for help, fire sirens in the distance. But in that moment, it was just me, James, and the fire. And then, just as he lunged at me, something happened that froze my blood. The ceiling above us cracked and broke apart, sending down a shower of burning debris straight toward where I stood. The ceiling split with a thunderous crack, and burning wood crashed down in front of me. Sparks exploded, flames shot higher, and for a second, I thought it was the end of me. My knees buckled as the heat slapped against my face. I clutched the fake invoices tighter, praying under my breath. Out of nowhere, James grabbed my arm and yanked me away from the falling debris. We tumbled to the ground, coughing, choking, crawling through the thick smoke. My chest burned like fire, every breath feeling like knives stabbing my lungs. For a moment, I was too stunned to speak. He had just saved me from being crushed. The same man who moments earlier threatened my life. But when I looked into his eyes, I didn't see kindness. I saw desperation. "Give me the papers, Maggie," he gasped, his face smeared with sweat and ash. "If those get out, I'm finished. My family will be ruined. Please." Tears welled in my eyes, not just from the smoke, but from the pain in my heart. "James, I treated you like my own son. Why would you do this to me?" His jaw clenched. "Because you don't understand. Kindness doesn't pay debts. Loyalty doesn't feed hungry mouths. I stole because I had to survive." I shook my head. "No, James. You stole because you chose to betray me. And now you're willing to let me die just to cover your sins." For a moment we just stared at each other as the flames roared louder around us. Then he lunged again, grabbing at the papers. I shoved them into my blouse, holding them close to my chest, refusing to let go. We wrestled in the smoke-filled room, both of us coughing, stumbling, hitting against the walls. Finally, with the strength of desperation, I pushed him back. He stumbled, tripped over a fallen beam, and fell hard to the floor. The fire crackled dangerously above us. I staggered to my feet, dizzy, my vision blurred. I turned toward the door, but James's voice stopped me. "Maggie!" he shouted, his tone softer now, almost broken. "Please. Help me up." I turned back. He was pinned under a heavy wooden beam, flames licking closer to his legs. His eyes were wide, begging, pleading. For a split second, my heart ached. This was a man I had fed, clothed, supported, loved like family. But this was also the same man who had stolen from me, betrayed me, and tried to destroy everything I worked for. I stood frozen, torn between anger and compassion. Suddenly, another beam creaked above him. If I didn't decide quickly, he would be gone forever. I took one step toward him, then froze as strong arms grabbed me from behind. It was Susan, coughing and crying. "Grandma Maggie, we have to get out. The building is collapsing." she screamed, dragging me toward the door. But James, I shouted, twisting in her grip. We can't save him, Susan cried. If we stay, we'll all die. Tears streamed down my face as she pulled me into the hallway. Behind me, I heard James screaming my name, his voice swallowed by the roar of the fire. We stumbled out of the building just as part of the roof caved in with a deafening crash. Firefighters rushed in, spraying water, shouting orders. Workers stood outside, watching in shock as our company, my life's work, was eaten by flames. I fell to my knees on the pavement, gasping for air, clutching the invoices still tucked in my blouse. My heart was breaking into pieces. My company was burning. My workers were staring at me with guilt and fear. And James was still inside. But before I could process anything, a firefighter ran up to me, his face pale. "Ma'am," he said urgently, "we found something inside, something you need to see immediately." The firefighter's voice was sharp and urgent. "Ma'am, we found something inside, something you need to see immediately." My heart pounded so hard I could barely breathe. What could they have found? James's body? More evidence? Or something even worse? I struggled to my feet, my legs weak, my clothes stained with ash and sweat. Susan tried to hold me back, whispering, "Grandma Maggie, you're too weak. Let the firefighters handle it." But I shook my head firmly. "No, child. This company is my blood and bones. If they found something, I need to see it with my own eyes." The firefighter nodded, then led me toward a tent where rescued items were being placed. My chest tightened as I approached. The air smelled of smoke and wet ashes. Workers huddled around, whispering, staring at me with guilt-filled eyes. On the table inside the tent lay a half-burned metal box. The firefighter pulled it open with his gloved hands. My jaw dropped. Inside the box was a stack of money. Tens of thousands of dollars in charred bills. Not all of it was destroyed. Some bundles were intact. I gasped, covering my mouth with my hands. That was my missing money, the money James had stolen. The firefighter looked at me with sympathy. "We found this hidden behind a false panel in the records room. Whoever put it there must have been trying to stash it away." Tears filled my eyes. Proof. Finally, proof. James hadn't just stolen a little. He had been stealing a fortune. And now, because of his greed, my company was in ruins. The workers shifted nervously behind me. Some avoided my gaze, while others looked openly ashamed. I could see the truth in their faces. Some of them must have known. Maybe not all, but at least a few. They had stayed silent while James bled me dry. I turned to them, my voice breaking but firm. "Do you see this? Do you see what your betrayal has cost me? I gave you my heart, my sweat, my life. And this is how you repay me? By stealing? By watching silently as one of your own burned my company down." Nobody spoke. The silence was heavier than any words could be. I staggered back, tears rolling down my face. The firefighters tried to comfort me, but nothing could ease the pain in my chest. That night, I went home broken. My house was small, old, and leaking, but it was all I had left. I sat by the window, staring at the charred invoices I had managed to save. My mind replayed James's last screams inside the fire. His voice haunted me, mixing pain with betrayal. Yet deep down, something told me the story wasn't over. James had always been cunning, always thinking 2 steps ahead. And sure enough, the very next morning, as I sat at my kitchen table, exhausted and drinking bitter black coffee, my phone rang. I picked it up with shaking hands. "Hello, Mama Maggie," a voice whispered on the other end. My blood ran cold. It was James. The coffee cup slipped from my hands and shattered on the floor. My whole body froze. That voice, low, hoarse, but unmistakable. It was James. I pressed the phone tighter to my ear, my voice trembling. "James? How are you alive? They told me you were trapped in the fire." A dry laugh came through the line. "You really thought I'd die that easily, Mama Maggie?" "No, I slipped out through the back storage when everyone was distracted. The firefighters only thought the building swallowed me." I gasped, my heart pounding. "But why call me? After all the damage you've done, after stealing, after burning my company to the ground. Why call me now?" His tone shifted, darker. "Because you still have something that belongs to me. Those invoices. I know you saved them. Hand them over, and maybe, just maybe, I'll let you live in peace. I clenched my fist, anger boiling through my veins. James, listen to me. I sacrificed everything for you, for all of you. I gave you food, clothes, money when you begged. And you betrayed me. Those papers are the only proof I have left that you robbed me blind. I will never give them up. For a long moment, there was silence on the line. Then his voice came back, cold as ice. Then you leave me no choice. You think you're safe in that little old house of yours? Think again. You don't know the kind of people I'm working with now. They don't forgive. They don't forget. And they'll come for you. The line went dead. My hand shook as I dropped the phone. My mind raced. James wasn't just a thief, he was dangerous. If he had allies, that meant I wasn't just fighting a worker's betrayal anymore. I was fighting something much bigger. For days I barely slept. Every sound outside my window made me jump. Every knock at the door made my heart skip a beat. Susan came to visit, trying to comfort me. Don't worry, Grandma Maggie, she said softly. You still have us. Some of us never betrayed you. Some of us are still loyal. Her words warmed my heart a little, but fear still clung to me like a shadow. Then one evening, just as the sun was setting and my street grew quiet, I noticed something strange. A black car was parked across from my house. Its windows were tinted, and it hadn't been there before. I watched it for hours, waiting for someone to step out. Nobody did. Finally, unable to bear it, I grabbed my walking stick and marched outside. My heart pounded as I approached the car. I raised my voice, calling out, "Who are you? What do you want?" The driver's side window rolled down slowly. And there, sitting behind the wheel, was James, his face scarred from the fire, his eyes cold and burning with hatred. But he wasn't alone. In the passenger seat sat a man I had never seen before, tall, with dark glasses and a cruel smile. James leaned out of the window, his voice calm but menacing. "I told you, Mama Maggie. You should have given me those papers. Now it's too late." The car door opened. The tall man stepped out, moving toward me. The evening air felt heavy against my skin. My hands trembled as the tall man stepped out of the car. His presence alone made the hairs on my neck stand up. He wasn't like James, desperate and broken. No, this man moved with confidence, like someone who had done dark things before and didn't fear consequences. He stopped a few steps from me, removing his sunglasses. His eyes were sharp, cold, calculating. James leaned out of the car window, his voice dripping with venom. "Mama Maggie, meet Victor. He's a businessman of sorts. He helps people like me recover what belongs to them." Victor gave me a small smile that sent chills down my spine. "I've heard a lot about you, ma'am. A kind employer. Too kind, some would say. But kindness doesn't protect you in this world. Strength does. And my friend James here says you have documents that could ruin him. Hand them over, and this ends tonight." I clutched my chest where the invoices were hidden. My voice shook, but I stood tall. "No. I won't give you anything. Those papers are my proof, my only justice after what James did to me. If you want them, you'll have to kill me first." Victor's smile faded. His eyes hardened. "That can be arranged." My knees nearly gave out, but I refused to show fear. I had survived poverty, hunger, and betrayal. I would not bow to threats now. Just then, Susan appeared from behind my fence. She had been bringing me dinner, as she often did since the fire. Her eyes widened when she saw the scene. The black car, James's scarred face, Victor towering over me. "Grandma Maggie," she screamed, running toward me. Victor raised his hand, signaling her to stop. "One more step, little girl, and this won't end well for you." Susan froze, her body trembling. "Leave her alone. She's done nothing but help people. Why are you doing this?" James barked a bitter laugh. "Help people? She helped herself. She wanted loyalty in return for scraps of kindness. Don't be fooled, Susan. She's not the saint you think she is." Susan turned to me, her eyes filled with confusion and fear. "Is that true, Grandma Maggie?" Tears stung my eyes. "Susan, you know me. Everything I did for you all. I starved so you could eat. I bled so you could have a roof. Don't listen to him. He's twisted by his own greed." Victor stepped closer, his voice low and threatening. Enough talk. You have one last chance. Hand over the papers. The street was eerily quiet. The only sounds were the chirping of crickets and my pounding heartbeat. I knew I couldn't give them the invoices, but I also knew refusing might cost me and Susan our lives. I took a deep breath, preparing to answer, when suddenly headlights flashed from the far end of the street. A police cruiser turned the corner, its siren blaring. James cursed under his breath. Victor grabbed his arm, pulling him back toward the car. This isn't over, James growled, pointing at me. You can't hide forever, Maggie. I'll get what's mine. They jumped into the car, tires screeching as they sped off into the night. I collapsed into Susan's arms, shaking like a leaf. My mind spun. Relief washed over me that the police had scared them off. But deep down, I knew this was only the beginning. And my fear proved right the next morning, when I opened my front door and found a small package sitting on the porch. Inside was a single burned photograph of me, with a red X drawn across my face. The burned photograph slipped from my trembling hands. My face, blackened with ash, marked with a bold red X. It felt like a death sentence staring back at me. My legs grew weak, and I dropped onto the porch step, clutching my chest. Susan picked it up, her own hands shaking. Grandma Maggie, they're threatening you. This isn't just about money anymore. They want to scare you into giving up those invoices. I swallowed hard, my throat dry. They won't just stop at scaring me. James is desperate. And Victor is dangerous. That man has seen blood before. Susan's eyes filled with fear. Then we have to go to the police. The word police sounded like hope, but at the same time it felt fragile. I knew how crooked some officers could be. And James had already shown he was cunning enough to erase security footage. Still, what choice did I have? That afternoon, Susan and I went to the station. I sat across from a young officer, showing him the invoices, the burned photo, and explaining everything. He listened, nodded, and scribbled in his notepad. Don't worry, ma'am, he said with a polite smile. We'll keep an eye on your property. If they show up again, call us immediately. His words were comforting, but deep in my gut, I felt uneasy. James wasn't the kind of man who would back off just because of police patrols. Days passed. The black car didn't return, but I could feel eyes on me everywhere I went, to the grocery store, to church, even when I watered the flowers by my porch. The feeling of being watched was like a shadow that never left. Then one evening, as I prepared to lock up for the night, I found another package on my doorstep. This time inside was something worse than the photo. It was one of my old handkerchiefs, the one I kept in my office desk, stained with blood. Susan gasped, covering her mouth. They were inside your office after the fire. They must have taken it. My heart pounded. If they could reach into my office ruins and pull something personal, how close would they come next? The answer came sooner than I expected. That night, around midnight, I was woken by the sound of glass shattering. I sat upright in bed, my heart racing. Susan, who had stayed over out of fear, rushed into my room whispering, "Grandma Maggie, someone's inside the house." We crept down the hallway, my walking stick trembling in my hand. The living room window was broken, the curtains swaying in the cool night air. And there, standing in the shadows of my own home, was Victor. His tall frame was unmistakable, his scarred smile glowing faintly in the moonlight. "Evening, Maggie," he said calmly, as though he belonged there. "Time's up." The sound of Victor's voice froze the blood in my veins. My living room, the one place that had always felt safe, was now tainted by his presence. The broken window let in a cold wind, but the chill I felt came from the man standing in the shadows. Susan gripped my arm, whispering, "Grandma Maggie, we have to run now." But Victor stepped forward, his heavy boots crunching against shards of glass. "No use running. You're too old and she's too scared. Hand over the documents and no one gets hurt." My hand instinctively clutched at my blouse where the invoices were hidden. My heart hammered against them as if it wanted to burst free. I stood tall, though my legs trembled. "Victor, you can threaten me all you want, but I will never give you those papers. They are the truth. They are justice." He tilted his head, smiling in that cold, cruel way. "Justice?" He chuckled darkly. There's no justice in this world, Maggie. Only power. And right now I have the power. Before I could respond, a second figure stepped through the broken window. My chest tightened. It was James. His face was half burned from the fire, scar tissue pulling at his skin. His eyes wild with rage and desperation. Seeing him in my house alive and breathing made my heart twist. "Mama Maggie," he said, his voice hoarse but strong. "Give me the papers. Don't make me do something I'll regret." I shook my head, tears streaming down my face. "James, my son, my worker, my friend, I gave you everything. And yet here you stand, threatening to destroy me. If you have any soul left in you, walk away now." But his face hardened. "It's too late for that." Victor pulled something from his coat, and my stomach dropped. It was a pistol. The metallic click echoed through the room as he cocked it, pointing it straight at me. Susan screamed, stepping in front of me. "No. Don't you dare touch her." Victor sneered. "Brave little girl. But bravery won't save her." The room was spinning. My breath came in ragged gasps. I thought of all my sacrifices, all the years I had poured into helping my workers. And here I was, cornered in my own home by the very people I had loved like family. James looked away for a moment, his jaw clenched, as if even he was struggling to see me like this. But Victor had no hesitation. He stepped closer, the pistol steady, his voice cold. "Last chance, Maggie. Hand over the invoices, or this story ends tonight." I swallowed hard, my body trembling, but my spirit still unbroken. "If you want them," I whispered, staring straight into his eyes, "then you'll have to kill me for them." Victor's smile widened. His finger tightened on the trigger. And then, the front door suddenly burst open, slamming against the wall. Blinding flashlight beams cut through the darkness, and the shout of a commanding voice filled the room. "Police! Drop the weapon!" The room exploded into chaos. Flashlights pierced the shadows, red and blue lights flickered through the broken window, and officers rushed in with their guns raised. "Drop it! Drop the weapon now!" One of them barked. Victor snarled like a cornered wolf, the pistol still pointed at me. His eyes darted wildly, weighing his chances. For a moment, I feared he'd pull the trigger out of sheer madness. But James stepped between him and the officers, raising his hands. "Stop! Stop! Don't shoot her! Don't shoot anyone!" Victor shoved him aside, furious. "Move, James. She's mine." The officers advanced, their voices firm. "Final warning. Put the gun down." Susan clung to me, whispering, "Please, Grandma Maggie, please stay down." But I couldn't stay silent. I stood as tall as my frail body allowed, my voice trembling yet strong. "Victor," I said, "you've already destroyed enough. You burned my company, you stole my trust, and you broke my heart. But you will not take my life. Not tonight." For the first time, his smile faltered. His eyes met mine, and I saw something strange flicker there. Not mercy but hesitation. James seized that moment. With a sudden burst of courage, he lunged at Victor, grabbing the gun. A struggle broke out, the two of them wrestling, the pistol jerking wildly. A deafening bang filled the room. Susan screamed. I clutched my chest, certain I'd been hit. But when the smoke cleared, Victor was on the floor, the pistol sliding across the tiles. Blood stained his shoulder where the bullet had grazed him. The officers rushed in, pinning both men to the ground. Handcuffs clicked shut. James's face was pale, broken, not from the fight, but from the weight of what he had become. As they dragged them away, James looked back at me, his eyes full of tears. "I'm sorry, Mama Magdzie. I never meant for it to go this far." I couldn't find words. My throat closed up, my heart aching with a pain deeper than any wound. I had loved him like a son, and now he was gone. Consumed by greed. When the house was finally quiet, I sat on the sofa, Susan beside me, holding my hand tightly. The invoices were still hidden beneath my blouse, pressed against my heart like a shield. Susan turned to me, her eyes wide with questions. "Grandma Maggie, was it worth it? All the sacrifices you made? Giving them everything, and this is how they repaid you?" I took a deep breath, tears sliding down my wrinkled cheeks. "Child, life is not about what others give back. It's about what we give, even when it costs us." Yes, I sacrificed everything for my workers, and yes, some betrayed me. But I will never regret choosing kindness. Because even if one heart is touched, even if one life is saved, that is worth more than all the money in the world. She hugged me tight, her tears soaking my shoulder. And in that moment, I knew I had survived not just fire, theft, or betrayal, but the test of my own soul. Viewers, my name is Grandma Maggie. I'm 72 years old, speaking from Alabama, and this has been my story. If you've listened all the way to the end, don't forget to subscribe, like, and click the notification button for more upcoming stories. And please, tell me in the comments from which part of the country you're watching from. Remember this life lesson. Kindness may sometimes hurt, but it is never wasted. Trust, once broken, is hard to rebuild. But your heart should never be hardened by betrayal. Because the strength of love is greater than the weakness of greed. I thought it was over. I thought the flashing lights, the sound of handcuffs, and the sight of James and Victor being driven away in the back of that police car was the end of my nightmare. But life has a cruel way of reminding us that scars don't fade overnight. 3 days later, I sat in the courthouse, clutching the invoices that had nearly cost me my life. Susan was beside me, her youthful face determined, though I could see the worry etched in her eyes. We had come to testify. The room was full of whispers, reporters scribbling, and cameras flashing. Everyone wanted a piece of the scandal. Company betrayal. Employees turn against elderly owner. Grandma's fortune stolen by her own workers. When James entered the courtroom, shackled at the wrists, I felt my chest tighten. His once proud walk was now reduced to a broken shuffle. He looked older, weaker, ashamed. But when his eyes found me, I saw not shame, no, it was something else. It was hatred. A chill ran down my spine. Victor sat beside him, bandaged but still smirking, his eyes darting around like a predator trapped in a cage. But James's stare cut into me like a knife. The judge's gavel slammed, and the trial began. Evidence was laid out. The burned photograph, the blood-stained handkerchief, the invoices. My words, trembling but steady, echoed through the courtroom as I told my story. When it was James's turn to speak, he did something I never expected. He stood tall, his voice loud enough to silence the entire room. She's lying. Gasps filled the air. She stole from us first, he continued, pointing straight at me. That old woman has been hiding money from her workers for years. We only took back what was ours. The courtroom erupted. Reporters scribbled faster. Cameras clicked wildly. My knees went weak, and Susan grabbed my hand. I wanted to shout, to scream, to defend myself. But James's words had already poisoned the air. His betrayal cut deeper than ever, and for the first time, I saw people in the room looking at me not as a victim, but as if I were the thief. The gavel pounded again. "Order in the court," the judge yelled. But in my heart I knew this fight was far from over. James wasn't just trying to escape justice. He was trying to destroy my name, my legacy, my very soul. And in that moment I realized something terrifying. The real battle hadn't even started yet. The sound of James's accusation echoed in my ears like a curse. She stole from us first. Those words twisted the room, turning eyes of sympathy into eyes of suspicion. I wanted to scream, to plead, to tell them everything I had done for my workers, but my voice caught in my throat. For the first time I realized that James wasn't just trying to save himself. He was trying to bury me alive with lies. The prosecutor rose to his feet, voice sharp and confident. "Your Honor, the defendant's claims are baseless. We have proof of embezzlement, arson, and intimidation against him and his accomplice." But James, fueled by desperation, leaned forward, slamming his chained hands on the table. Proof? Where was her proof when she cheated us out of bonuses? When she hid profits and built her own comfort while we starved? The murmurs in the courtroom grew louder. Reporters whispered to each other, pens scratching furiously. It didn't matter if his words were lies. Once spoken, they carried a dangerous weight. The judge's gavel cracked against the wood. "Order, or I will clear the court." I clutched Susan's hand, my body trembling. She leaned in, whispering fiercely, "Grandma Maggie, don't let him win. Speak. Tell them the truth." When I finally rose, my knees wobbled, but my spirit held firm. I faced the room, my voice steady though my heart pounded. "I am 72 years old. I gave my life, my health, and every penny I had to build that company. Not for myself but for the men and women who worked there. I skipped meals so they could eat. I sold my jewelry to cover their salaries. And now the very people I sacrificed everything for stand here, calling me a thief. The silence was heavy. I saw some eyes soften again, but James only laughed bitterly. "You're a good actress, Maggie," he spat. "But I know your secrets." The words chilled me. "What secrets?" I demanded, though my voice trembled. James leaned forward. His burned face twisted with a cruel smile. "Ask her about the missing account. Ask her about the offshore money she never told anyone about." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Reporters nearly fell over themselves trying to capture every word. Even the judge's eyebrows shot up. Susan turned to me, her face pale. "Grandma, what is he talking about?" My stomach dropped. I knew exactly what James meant. Years ago, I had created a hidden emergency fund. Money tucked away in a private account, never declared publicly. It wasn't for greed, but for survival. I had kept it as a last resort for the company if everything ever collapsed. But now, twisted by James's words, it sounded like proof of corruption. The prosecutor looked at me sharply. "Ma'am, is there any truth to these claims?" The entire courtroom leaned in, waiting for my answer. My chest tightened. If I admitted it, my reputation would crumble. If I denied it, James might have documents to prove me a liar. I opened my mouth to speak, and then the back doors of the courtroom swung open. A tall man in a dark suit walked in, holding a folder in his hand. His voice rang out clear. "Your Honor, I have new evidence that will change everything." Every head in the courtroom turned as the tall man strode forward. His suit was perfectly pressed, his shoes polished, and his presence commanded silence. He handed the judge the folder with calm authority. "Your Honor," he said, "my name is Richard Cole. I'm a federal investigator, assigned to monitor financial crimes in this district. I've been following this case closely, and I believe these documents will shed new light." The judge adjusted his glasses, flipping through the folder. His eyes narrowed, then widened slightly. "Mr. Cole, are you saying this case involves more than company fraud?" Richard nodded. "Yes, Your Honor. What we're dealing with is part of a much larger scheme." Whispers filled the courtroom like buzzing bees. Susan clutched my arm, her nails digging in. "Grandma Maggie, what does he mean?" My lips trembled. "I don't know, child. I don't know." The judge motioned for Richard to explain. He stepped forward, his voice steady. "During my investigation into Mr. James and Mr. Victor, I uncovered multiple offshore transfers. Not just theirs, but linked to accounts in the company's name. Some of these accounts were hidden, undisclosed, and one of them," he paused, looking directly at me, "is registered under the name Margaret Elizabeth Harlow." The room erupted. All eyes fell on me. My knees buckled and I nearly collapsed back into my seat. James burst into laughter, his voice dripping with triumph. "See? I told you. She's not the saint she pretends to be." Tears stung my eyes. My voice cracked as I tried to explain. That account, it wasn't for me. It was for the company. For emergencies. For times when salaries couldn't be paid. I never touched a penny for myself. But the damage was done. Reporters scribbled furiously, their headlines already forming. I could almost see it in bold letters. "Grandma Boss hid secret fortune." Susan turned to me, her face pale and stricken. "Grandma, why didn't you tell anyone?" I grabbed her hand desperately. Because sometimes, child, trust is a dangerous thing. I thought if they knew about that money they'd misuse it. I only wanted to protect them. But now my voice broke. Now it looks like I was the thief all along. The judge slammed his gavel for silence. "This court will review the evidence. Until then, both the prosecution and defense will prepare to argue this new discovery." But the blow had already landed. My name, my company, my sacrifices, everything I had lived for, was now tainted in the eyes of the public. As I sat trembling in that courtroom, James leaned back in his chair, his shackled hands resting on the table, and whispered just loud enough for me to hear. "You're finished, Maggie. No one will ever believe you again." And for the first time I felt not just betrayed but truly defeated. The weight of James's words pressed against my chest like a stone. "You're finished, Maggie." For a moment I wanted to believe him. My life's work, my name, my sacrifices, all overshadowed by one hidden account that now looked like proof of greed. But then I looked at Susan. Her young face, pale with fear, still held a spark of belief in me. That tiny spark lit something deep inside my soul. I would not go down without a fight. When the judge granted me a chance to speak again, I rose to my feet. My voice shook at first, but then it steadied, fueled by years of endurance. "Yes, I had a hidden account," I said, my words echoing through the silent courtroom. "But I never touched it for myself. That money was meant for my workers, for their families when times grew dark. I kept it hidden because I knew greed would devour it if exposed. Call me foolish for hiding it, but don't you dare call me a thief. I bled for that company. I gave my life for it." Some heads nodded. Others remained skeptical. But I saw doubt flicker across James's face, and that gave me strength. The prosecutor seized the moment. "Your Honor, the existence of an undisclosed account does not erase the mountain of evidence against the defendants. We must not let smoke distract us from the fire." Victor growled from his seat. "This is a setup. The old woman's money belongs to us. We built that company with our sweat." The judge silenced him with a sharp bang of the gavel. "Another outburst and you'll be removed." Then Richard Cole, the federal investigator, stood again. "Your Honor, if I may." He placed another document on the judge's bench. "This is a bank trail proving that while the hidden account exists, it was never withdrawn from. Not once. However, I also discovered other accounts under false names, funneling money out of the company. And these," he looked straight at James and Victor, "are linked to the defendants." The courtroom gasped. My knees nearly gave out with relief. James's face twisted with panic. He slammed his chained fists against the table. "Lies. That's all lies. You can't prove it was me." But Richard only smirked, lifting another page. "I can. Your signatures are all over the transfers." The judge leaned back, frowning deeply. "This changes everything. Court will recess to verify these claims." As the gavel struck, guards moved to escort James and Victor out. But just before they reached the exit, James twisted free with shocking speed. He shoved one of the guards, grabbed Victor's arm, and bolted toward the side door. Chaos erupted. Officers shouted, reporters scrambled, and Susan screamed as the two men fought their way out of the courtroom. And then in the chaos, James's voice rang out, filled with rage and madness. "If I'm going down, Maggie, I'm taking you with me." The courtroom exploded into chaos as James's words echoed. "If I'm going down, Maggie, I'm taking you with me." I froze, my heart slamming against my ribs. Guards rushed after him and Victor, but in that split second, James broke free, grabbing one of the officer's sidearms in a wild frenzy. Gasps filled the air. Susan screamed, clutching my arm. "Grandma, get down." But I couldn't move. My legs locked as James swung the gun toward me. His burned face twisted with rage and desperation. His eyes red like fire. "You ruined me," he roared. "You took everything from me. You made me believe you were a mother, but you left me with nothing." Tears blurred my vision, but I held his gaze. My voice trembled, but I refused to cower. "No, James. I gave you everything, my trust, my love, my sacrifice. It was you who threw it away." For a moment, his hand shook. I saw the boy I once trusted flicker in his eyes, the man who had once called me Mama Maggie. But then the darkness returned, heavier than ever. He raised the gun. Bang! The shot rang through the courthouse. Screams erupted. I closed my eyes, bracing for the pain, but it never came. Slowly, I opened them. James staggered, the gun slipping from his grip. A crimson bloom spread across his shoulder where a police bullet had struck. He collapsed to the floor, his face pale, his breath ragged. Victor tried to lunge toward him, but the officers tackled him hard, forcing him into cuffs once again. The gavel pounded furiously as the judge shouted for order. I stood trembling, tears streaming down my cheeks. Susan wrapped her arms around me, sobbing. I had survived, but my heart ached with a grief deeper than any wound. As James was lifted from the floor, he turned his head weakly toward me. His voice cracked, broken, but clear enough to pierce my soul. "Mama Magji. I just wanted to be more than a worker. I wanted to be your son. And then his eyes closed, his body going limp as the officers carried him away. Silence hung heavy over the courtroom. Reporters didn't dare move. The air was thick with tragedy, betrayal, and finality. I sank into my seat, my body frail, my spirit weary. Susan held my hand tightly, whispering, "It's over now, Grandma. It's over." But I knew it would never truly be over. Some scars don't fade. Some betrayals never heal. Yet, as I looked at Susan, the only one who had stood by me through it all, I realized something important. Life had taken much from me. Money, trust, workers I had once loved as family. But it had not taken my heart. And as long as I still had love to give, I would not let greed and betrayal define me. Viewers, my name is Grandma Maggie. I'm 72 years old, speaking from Alabama, and this has been my story. If you've listened all the way to the end, don't forget to subscribe, like, and click the notification button for more upcoming stories. And please, tell me in the comments from which part of the country you're watching from. Remember this life lesson. Broken heart, you can give your all to people, and some may still betray you. But never let their darkness turn off your light. Betrayal may wound you, but love, kindness, and truth will always be your greatest strength. Broken heart.